first question, obviously, we could start with the great gamble, as our cover story calls it, about the demonetization. So little that I have heard you speak on the subject, you seem to be in agreement conceptually on the idea, but you seem to have some apprehensions on the implementation and the execution part. Sir, as somebody who has tremendous experience in public affairs, what do you think has been the implementation failure points? Is it the state capacity, or is it like the from the finance ministry side, they didn't have a kind of a war room like approach, lack of dashboard? So what do you think was the how do you think the implementation has panned out?
Well, there are two major shortfalls of the demonetization, which the Prime Minister announced. One was that I had myself here in, I think in 2014, had appointed a committee called the Strategic Action Committee of the party, of which I was the chairman. And we had drawn up a set of proposals, and one proposal was definitely
this.
Demonetization. The timing was left to the Prime Minister to be, which Narendra Modi did become. But I had said two things. One, that there should be a palliative with it. So if you're going to demonetize, at that stage I really thought of only a 1,000 rupee note.
Okay.
And perhaps later on 500 after you had digested the effects of the 1,000 rupee thing. But it should be accompanied by a complete and total abolition of income tax.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I thought that, first of all, the black money in a stock form is abroad. And in India, black money is a flow. And the flow is, supposing I evade income tax and I keep black money, and then I take a taxi ride and I give the taxi driver his fare, it becomes white.
Absolutely.
So the black money is, there's no fixed amount in that sense. It expands and contracts depending on the transactions that are taking place. So the incentive to evade taxes is the fundamental reason for the augmentation of black money flow in our country.
Absolutely.
And therefore I thought that the income tax should be abolished, number one. Number two, I thought that there should have been a well thought of plan of how to make up for the cash loss or cash crunch. And there should have been, over the last 2.5 years, a huge surplus of 100 rupee notes, maybe 200 rupee notes, and had it ready. Now these are parts of the what I call as the contingency plans. You don't know when it's going to come. I think Finance Ministry was under an illusion, or were up in the clouds thinking that this will never happen.
Absolutely.
And I think probably Mr. Jaitley also thought that the Prime Minister will never act alone. So the Finance Ministry was taking it very casually. And I also think that some of the things they did was without thinking. For example, this 2,000 rupee note, why was it necessary to change its size? Had you not changed the size, the ATM factor would have been there.
Okay.
So, and then we should have decentralized the cash receipts and delivery. For example, we have public sector organizations, large public sector, and they have the bulk of the workers. And we should have told them the day before or the night before that you have to distribute it, and we have already made arrangements for trucks to reach you. And you distribute the cash or accept the cash. So instead of everybody rushing to the bank, and then the bank either being overworked or then finding loopholes by which they can do it. The third thing I had said after the announcement is now you say anybody who has 500 rupee note, 1000 rupee notes, whether you're accounted, unaccounted, let him put it in his own account, no questions asked. And then 25% government will take it away. 25% you can withdraw as cash, so that cash augmentation takes place. Of the new notes. And 50% in fixed deposit for 5 years at 2% interest.
Which is, I think the government has kind of slight variation.
Now you see, the variation is the deadly part. It's a self-destructing part. The finance ministry changed it. It was actually, I didn't directly give it. Somebody on behalf of the Prime Minister, who was a very eminent person, he told me that he's looking for suggestions, give it to me. So I gave it to him, he passed it on, I think. And why I say that the finance ministry amendment was deadly, I mean is self-destructive, is he changed, the finance ministry changed the tax to 50%. Now at 30% you are getting the informal market converting.
Okay.
So why should he pay 50% when he can get it at 30%?
30%, absolutely.
That you could not stop. That was going on. Indians are too smart. They can't be caught on everything.
Absolutely.
And then you see, somebody said to me that, well, it's legitimate if you give to the government. I said, who can tell? Your name is now in black and white. How do you know next year they won't use it against you?
Right.
Particularly if they don't like you. So, therefore, people will not prefer the risk of giving it to the dalal and paying a less amount, and so that also has been
another loophole.
And the most important part, I said, there will be collateral damages.
Okay.
Supposing now, for instance, I am a truck freight owner. I have to send my truck from, say, Bombay to Madras. I have to give in cash to the driver for about 40,000, 45,000 rupees, because he has to pay the toll tax on the way. Maybe the bribe, which will not go away just because you have demonetized. And then he has to go to the dhaba and eat his lunch, dinner and breakfast. Then he has to buy petrol and diesel.
Absolutely.
So he doesn't have 45. He doesn't have the 45,000 cash anymore.
Though I might have to just interject, Swamiji, is that great 3 loopholes that you pointed out, but somehow the trucking industry seemed to have managed through it, like they've shown some resilience, because I mean, I was also honestly expecting that there will be a supply chain disruption, but there have been some loopholes, but the supply chain still now has not collapsed the way that it was feared initially. So
it didn't collapse, but it has slowed it down. You see, everything has gone down. The rate of growth has gone down. The employment rate has gone down. Everything is gone. The stock market has gone down.
Right. So indicate early warning.
All these could have been avoided.
Swamy and Dr. Swamy, the other important point that you brought about is that everybody knows that you are the probably the first politician, for the first mainstream academic economist who kind of advocated the idea of abolishing the income tax. Like I've seen you advocate it as late as long time back, and looks like that particular idea, at least in the Indian context, is gaining traction. For example, the magazine that I ran, we wrote 2 pieces.
I saw that.
One is like a civilizational case against income tax, and another is a moral case against income tax.
Yes.
Because in India, if you really look at, indirect taxes have been much more largely successful, because income tax somehow, people try to evade it. So, from your early, thought process, what drove you to suggest that, this IT is a very regressive tax or it needs to be abolished? What was your thinking process?
General public complaint. They're being harassed, you see. I myself, when I came back from America, I was not a known political figure. We were getting our taxes cut at the source of my salary. You see, of IIT, I was a professor at IIT. But the income tax guy would send a notice saying, please appear before me in the Aikar Bhavan. and will ask me all kinds of irrelevant questions. Ultimately say, I am going on a vacation with my family to Kashmir. Please fund it. Otherwise, I'll make a claim for you.
I think things have not changed much, looks like.
Yeah, I'm now talking about 70, 71. So anyway, I thought socialism was bunk. And I said so at that time.
Absolutely.
And it turned out to be true. So our growth rates have grown by leaps and bounds. We were growing at 3.5% per year. Now we are 9%. Is nothing for us. So I think one of the greatest injustices done by Jawaharlal Nehru was to foist this Soviet model on India.
Absolutely. Yeah. Prime Minister often emphasizes on the demographic dividend. You know, you have so many millions of youth entering the workforce every time. But if you look at the structural challenges across the world, I mean, not necessarily of India, you know, like artificial intelligence and, you know, the automation, the labor intensity of employment has completely shrunk, you know, like for example, Facebook or even WhatsApp was basically some 30 employees created it, and you know the valuation. So, you know, the entire labor intensity of employment has gone, and with India going to, you know, churn out youth by millions actually, and where do you see the job opportunities really coming up? Because, you know, in the consequence of dissatisfied youth is, you know, I mean, you have lived through the turbulent times where they get into political agitations or, you know, the left-wing terror movements. So what is your take? Where do you see India's economic engine firing? What is going to be the key?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, as early as 1969, 70, a famous population expert, Ghosh, his name was. He was in the Indian Economic Institute. He brought a book on population, and he had one chapter of mine where I said that people talk about population as a liability, but it is also an asset. So it depends on how you prepare your population. Now, when you talk about demographic dividend, what you are talking about is that young population are capable of, if properly empowered by education, to do innovation. Innovations change everything. Absolutely. After all, what was the Industrial Revolution all about? It was the locomotive, the Bessemer steel blast furnace. What was the American Revolution about? It is about mass production
of automobiles,
jet engines, automobiles, turnpikes. So these, and then in the recent years is the internet, which has changed the way you do business. You can sit in New York and run.
That is the part of my question. That unlike
now you say these have limited potential for employment. That is as the product itself. But the industries that feed into making this product, they are all, if you add them all up, it is much more. That's why we economists use input-output analysis, because there is something called direct employment and indirect employment. And I'm telling you, all modern innovations have a very high indirect generation of employment. But the population has to be skilled. Our problem is dividend. It's not a dividend yet. It's a potential dividend. But you have to somehow educate this population. And the kind of priority we should have given to education, we have not given. And therefore, we have to change mindset. Our Indian mindset is risk aversion. We have to educate them to take risk and then go into fields where they may fail, but they must not give up. They keep trying. These are mindset changes that have to be brought about before the demographic surplus of young population can become a dividend.
Great response, Swamiji.
Sir, on black money, as you know, you have fought a long battle against it.
Yes.
Your party claims that they are fighting battle against them. So, what do you think? How they are approaching it? Are they approaching it right way, or what are the specific steps that you would like them to take?
Sure. So, first of all, the most important part of black money inside the country is just income tax. Knock it off. Even indirect tax. Of all the commodities, you rank them by the revenue they provide. first 21 will give you 90% of the income tax, indirect tax. So why are you putting it on the remaining thousands and thousands of commodities?
It has its own costs.
Just remove, yeah, and it has its costs. So as far as India is concerned, within India, you just simply abolish income tax, knock off all these this registration tax and all for real estate. What is the need for paying taxes and having a stamp paper, filling out? And of course, if the income, because of income tax, they understate the value of the property. All that needs to be removed. But the bigger problem of $1 trillion abroad is in 70 countries you have secret banking. Not all countries. The United States does not have secret banking. India does not have secret banking. But there are 70 countries in the world where there is secret banking. So in 2005, the United Nations had passed a resolution on corruption. And it said that if a country passes a legislation saying that their nationals' accounts in these 70 countries are nationalized, the United Nations will help them acquire that bank account and the money in it. And those are, and you have to have a provision that if any of them can prove that the bank was legally open and the money there is legal, then it will be returned back to him. This was the suggestion. Now the Egyptians did it with Marcoses. They specifically said Marcos accounts are hereby nationalized. The United
Philippines,
Nations,
you mean?
Philippines? No. Philippines
Egyptian,
is the earlier one,
early
Marcos.
One. Yeah.
But I'm talking about this guy. What is his name? The president of Egypt, Mubarak. Mubarak's and Gaddafi. They have got it back. There are other methods also. There is of course a very small method. I mean a small value method. And that is with the Switzerland, for example, we have mutual assistance pact. If you can say Sonia Gandhi has an account in Saracen Bank, which is head office is in Geneva, or that Rahul Gandhi has an account in Pictet Bank in Zurich, and they do. And I've given it in writing to the finance ministry. Then you can tell the Swiss through a letter rogatory, please help us get it. You will get it. But that's...
So what's the problem here, sir?
There the problem is the finance minister is not...
they don't want to go that
doesn't
distance.
want to pursue this matter. That's another story. Then I told this to the Prime Minister that this is one method. And then I've written to the Enforcement Directorate also. They have been stopped from going forward. Then you have the American method, which is a very fancy method, which I like because it's a macho method. They found that the intelligence report that there are some 5,726 bank accounts in Credit Suisse and in Union Bank of Switzerland. And so they have branches in Washington. So they sent their treasury agents to tell the chairman of that branch that please give us all the names and their accounts. These two chairmen said, no, we can't do that. We have a secrecy clause, blah, blah, etc. And so the treasury agents went back. Evening, the FBI came, picked up these guys, these chairmen, all the other main officials, put them in jail along with criminals. Within 2 days, Switzerland said, we'll give you all the names. Also, all the names can be. Now, the Credit Suisse and Union Bank also has branch office in Bombay. We can do the same thing. This is one method. Then the other method is the German method, which the French also have used, which is the Germans found that their officials are having accounts in the neighboring country of Liechtenstein. So they asked Merkel, the Chancellor, asked the King, please give us the names, please give us the details. So he said, no, this is our business, we'll be finished. It happened. So Merkel told the German officials, find the senior most banking official of Bank of Liechtenstein, bribe him and get these names. So these fellows met the senior most official, bank official, and started offering him a bribe, and finally settled $500 million, plus a US citizenship, plus plastic surgery to change his face. It actually happened.
Yeah.
And they got the entire thing on a CD, in which they found Indian accounts also. Until we came, the Indian accounts, the Manmohan Singh government was refusing to accept the invitation of Merkel.
Okay.
So there's another way. The French did it also with the Union Bank, Hong Kong Shanghai Bank in Geneva. So there are methods of doing it. But the other countries must know you're serious.
Serious about
Now, we have today, I have very serious doubts about many of our officials in our government who, they also have accounts abroad. Now, they are not going to allow it to, you to succeed on that. So, we need clarity. So, when I explained all these methods to the Prime Minister, he preferred that United Nations method. So, I sent him in writing. But it's still not been implemented.
Swamiji, other question, like, you know, you have tremendous domain expertise on black money.
Yeah.
And how, so slightly shifting the focus. See, you've studied extensively about the Chinese model,
sure.
you know.
Sure.
I mean, some people even accuse you of being little soft on China.
I am soft on China.
I mean, I'm also a xenophile, let me admit.
No, I'm not a xenophile. I
mean, in the sense that
I think our priority is to be friends with
so
them.
you think, like, you know, since, to be very, if you really look at the Chinese leverage the manufacturing model to, you know, provide millions of jobs.
Not correct.
Not exactly correct? Okay.
Now
that India's kind of missed the manufacturing bus.
That part I agree.
So, you know, is there like any lessons that we can learn from the Chinese economic miracle? Obviously, the political system, the realities are very different. You know, they don't have elections to face. And
Chinese
all that.
is not a manufacturing miracle.
So, what do you think? Like 2-3 lessons that we can learn from them? In terms
there are no lessons to learn from them. In fact, there are lessons to unlearn from them. But I'll tell you what the Chinese great success is due to. The Chinese model. They import semi-processed goods from Korea, Taiwan, Japan, not Hong Kong, Singapore, Philippines, like that. And then they add value to it. Like, for example, Lenovo. Lenovo comes in the circuit form from Taiwan.
Absolutely.
Then they put a keyboard on it, the glass case. No, they add value. It's not a value. It comes in, the basic circuits come from Taiwan. And then they put a stamp made in China. Okay. And what is the advantage for Taiwan to do it? Because if Taiwan itself did it, the cost will become much higher. So they won't be able to sell it. So they sell it, give it to China. China has cheap labor, skilled labor, and then it imports, exports to America and Europe. So therefore what happens is that the Chinese have a deficit trade with East Asia because they are only importing from East Asia. But they have a huge surplus trade with Europe and America. And so the sum total, they get a surplus, and that is their model. There is no indigenous manufacturing capability of China as of yet. But now the Chinese have realized that because the wages of their labor is going up, therefore they may not get an advantage. Some other countries might come in the picture, and therefore now they are trying to what they call as rebalance their economy. India's lessons to learn, if you want a lesson to learn, it is this, that the Chinese can do it, we can do it better because we have a lower skilled labor cost. So, but what is the problem? All these countries say, we like to come to India, you've got a court, you've got this thing, you've got patent laws, but you have a lousy infrastructure. And a corrupt system. Permission in Delhi, permission in the state, permission in the municipality. It's still, Delhi may be easy, but on the road it's terrible. The roads are all, potholes, so on. It takes 1 week to turn around a ship in India. Whereas in Singapore it takes a few hours. Okay. So these are the places now. The day we do that, we have an efficient transportation system or a highways, national highway system. These people will all come to us and we will get the boom. And we already have a manufacturing base, but we have starved them with these high interest rates. You see, and we have literally driven out those labor-intensive small and medium industries, thanks to that crackpot called Raghuram Rajan, who told us all that if you raise interest rates, the inflation will be controlled. Of course, that's one way of doing it, but what's the consequence? A doctor can bring down a temperature by killing the patient. It's the fastest way to bring down a temperature. But then that's it, you see. So, because he's not an economist, Raghuram Rajan, just a management type, they know only these what is called as microeconomics. But macroeconomics is a general equilibrium system. What you do here has an effect there, you see. So, therefore, our mistake was that. Our first mistake was to have the Soviet model. Absolutely. And the second mistake is to keep these interest rates so high that manufacturing decided to go for capital and these labor laws, these socialist labor laws. So they went in for capital intensive technology.
Absolutely. Swamiji, the other question that wanted to ask you is that, at 26 you had completed your PhD.
24.
24, sorry. Sorry, bad research from me.
No problem. You see, what happened is, at 25, the convocation took place.
Okay.
But the PhD, and I started teaching at 24.
They say 1965.
60, that is the official. That's a convocation.
So,
but the thesis was submitted in 64.
So,
in, early 64.
After working with, like very formidable economic scholars and Samuelson and others, so you decided to take a. I think initially you came to teach in DSC or IIT Delhi.
First started teaching at Harvard. And then I became associate professor. I was due for becoming a full professor. So the choice was whether should I settle down permanently or go back. And I wanted to go back. So at that time, Delhi school invited me to teach. So I went for one summer. I taught, I liked it. So I told them I'll come back. And accept the chair for China. But by the time I came, Congress split. Communists, Indira Gandhi had to depend on communists. Mr. Amartya Sen immediately turned color because he's an opportunist of the first order. And after inviting me to be a professor, he coolly buzzed off. And so I went and became professor at IIT. I taught there for 3 years as a full professor. Suddenly Mrs. Gandhi picked up my book, which I had written on alternative economic planning, and read out and said, this dangerous man coming from America, polluting the minds. How is he a professor? Next day I was sacked. And I fought in court, and 22 years later I won. But I was a minister by then. So I went and joined for 1 year and then resigned the next day.
So what was that moment where you decided to, take a plunge into politics? Is there like some individual who inspired you? Or is it your own?
No. I couldn't get any other job in India. I'm serious. I applied to Dibrugarh University. They couldn't take anybody else because my qualification.
First preference was still professor.
I was intending it, never intended to go to politics. I was a mathematical economist. I was already famous in China. On China, I had a joint paper with Paul Samuelson on index numbers, became classic in the field. In fact, Samuelson in an article said, I have 5 students who will get Nobel Prize in the next 10 years. And 4 got it. I'm the only one who didn't get it because I came away. But I thought, why should I go back? I mean, it's so big deal. I may become Nobel laureate. What is this whole thing?
Now do you
Clean
regret
up
the decisions?
Now
you regret it?
Me? Yeah. Why should I?
No.
What is it? All my peers are now retired and watching television, whereas I'm ruling the roost here.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. I think it is India's gain, I would say, that you had come back. So the other question that I wanted to ask is that since Swarajya magazine, in a way, is very close to your ideology in terms of, free market. I mean, it basically this magazine was started as a dissent against the Nehruvian socialism, and Rajaji coined it infamous license quota permit.
That's right.
And Rajaji was also a very unapologetic civilizational guy. He was a scholar of. So, bit like you, blending free market economics with the cultural, civilizational
that's right.
ethos. So do you think that, from the economic side, your ideas are very clear. Do you think there is a solid ground to find, marry a kind of free market thinking with Hindu civilizational ethos? You think there is a natural, convergence
Yeah. See, the Hindu philosophy, we don't have a prophet.
Absolutely.
So there's no one to command us. Okay. You want to believe in God? You can. You want to believe only in Shiva but not in Vishnu? You can. You can want to believe in Vishnu but not in Shiva? You can. If you can say don't believe in any murtis at all,
Absolutely.
like Arya Samaji, you can. Can you say I don't believe in God? If you are sincerely don't believe in God, still you are a Hindu. You are called a Gnostic. So the most decentralized religion,
Absolutely,
is Hinduism, natural for market economy.
Brilliant.
The only addition that Hinduism brings, which makes us a more happy people than the Americans, is we do not believe in materialism, a one-dimensional materialism.
Absolutely.
We believe spiritual values are important. So we venerate people who sacrifice but are knowledgeable. You see, Gandhi used to go around half naked with a piece of cloth around him. Can you imagine in America a politician going in his underwear? They will put him in jail immediately. You see, and for long years people couldn't understand how can you walk behind this lean skeleton called Gandhi, who is half naked, and Churchill used to call him half naked. See our spiritual leaders, also simple, simply clothed. Look at Pope. How the way he looks like a jewelry store on the move, you see, or the Imam in Makkah. So this veneration of knowledge, what we call as Gyan and Tyag, you see, that is what separates us from the Western world of market economy.
Beautiful.
Market economy is driven by profit, but we do not consider, we don't hold it as taboo, but we think the higher thing in society, and which all need not do, but some must do, is pursue knowledge and give up the normal pleasures of life. And he would be higher than the king. In fact, the king will have to go and seek his advice.
Absolutely.
Policy decisions were made by knowledgeable people.
Absolutely.
And only the fighting, defending was done by the king. And those who made money, well, if they, beyond their legitimate needs, if they gave it to society, then they were also very highly.
So the other question, Swamiji, that I wanted to ask you is that, basically US elections just happened, but the US election has been a culmination of certain economic and political trends across the world. Like, for example, you are probably one of the best persons to respond, having tremendous knowledge on free trade, on global trade. There is a feeling that protectionism across the world is returning with a big bang. Like, even, all the early noises by Trump, a lot of people dismissed probably as election rhetoric, but, his appointments, the subsequent, the way in which he's conducted himself also looks that protectionism might come back very strongly in the US, or some form of protectionism, more like, like basically the...
Yeah, I understand.
So how do you think, it's going to, even it's already India's feeling like, our exports are not as good as what it used to be, and, even China's kind of hit the, so as to speak, the wall. So how do you see this protectionism playing out? Is it a transient phenomenon, or you think, since there is a underlying political force?
See, the WTO is still there.
Still there, yeah.
And you can always fight unjustified tariffs in the WTO. And the fight is going on every day. We are putting cases against China, and China is putting cases on America. America is putting cases on India. On drugs, for example, the pharmaceutical industry, the Americans are putting all kinds of cases against us in that. I don't think so. I don't think also Trump has got anything to do with protectionism. Trump was the first person to recognize, I think, that this political correctness is hypocrisy. And the public hated it. And most public was not going to vote. American voting percentages were 40, 41, much lower than India's.
Around
So
50.
now this time.
This time.
But you see the last election. And therefore, or the earlier elections, you take the average, it's around 40, 42. And now, when he began speaking their language in their crude way, maybe all the sophisticates are not happy. But these masses,
Middle America, so
they decided to go and vote. And they didn't participate in any polling because nobody went to their houses. And so they got the polls wrong. And Trump won. And I supported Trump winning. I, in fact, won a bet with the Prime Minister's principal secretary, who said the whole country thinks that Hillary is going to win, and you are the only one who says that. I said, take a bet. And I won the bet. And the New York Times carried a big story about how Trump had an avid supporter in a Hindu fanatic in India. So, the same thing with Brexit. The lumpen masses, as you call them, they are fed up. All this, they want their country back. They said, we don't want all this internationalism. It's got nothing with protectionism that way. And now Italy, I mean, the guy who won there was behind 4-5 points behind in the polls.
Absolutely.
So, what about Modi? I mean, who would have ever thought he's going to... of course, Modi's victory has got to do with A, his personality, but two, our anti-corruption fight, which I am responsible for.
Right.
And the third was Hindutva, which RSS was responsible for.
It's a convergence.
Because
of
for years we were dividing the Hindu vote and uniting the minority vote. And we said we won't allow the Hindu vote to be divided to the extent that we can. And our percentage votes went up from 21 to 31, we got majority.
Right.
So regarding the Hindu causes that you talk about, a lot of what was based on that Hindutva sentiment was there.
Yeah.
But after coming to power, as it happens, whenever the BJP government comes in, they abandon the Hindu causes. Right now we have Right to Education Act that is very sectarian to Hindu population. We have temples that are under government control. So why BJP doesn't act on these things that are very much secular actually, that are discriminatory against Hindu population?
But we are doing it on triple talaq, we are doing it on Indian Uniform Civil Code. You want us to do everything together?
The real
Ram temple I am doing.
Sir, education is like most basic.
And temples, by the way, I got the Savanagar temple released.
Absolutely.
And now I got a petition Supreme Court to scrap the Hindu.
No,
Hindu,
the concern is, there is Swamy, Dr. Swamy, who is like the kind of one-man army fighting for the causes dear to Hindus, but ideally, there should be like at least some 100 clones of Dr. Swamy is the institutional perspective.
No, I agree. But you see, I think the change around that has taken place in the last 2.5 years is something that had not happened in the last 70 years.
Absolutely.
Okay. And we still got 2.5 years. So you can raise this question. I agree, Mr. Vajpayee did not, and that's why he lost. I have told Narendra Modi also, don't think that development gives you victory. Development is a necessary condition for your victory.
Absolutely.
But it's not sufficient. Narasimha Rao produced the best economic development in 5 years. And my God, he was thrashed. His party strength came down to half. So did Rajiv Gandhi, who produced the best industrial development growth rate. Mr. Morarji Desai produced the best price decline. And all three lost. So Chandrababu Naidu lost, Krishna lost. So nobody can win on development alone, provided you don't have negative development. Absolutely. I mean, then of course, so it's a necessary condition,
yes,
not
a sufficient condition.
For sufficient, you have to bring some sentiment. Sentiment is maybe fight with Pakistan, that's a sentiment, or Hindutva. We Hindus have been, we are majority, we are 80%, but we are treated like we are 5%. That kind of sentiment is now important.
So the best can be said is you are not anti-Hindu party currently.
No, party may be anything, but it's too early to judge. Too early to judge. I mean, till yesterday, till 2 months ago, none of our people are talking about uniform civil code. None of us are talking about triple talaq. We are now talking about
absolutely.
So
Doctor,
slightly follow-up question on that. Triple talaq or uniform civil code does not directly impact the Hindu population. It is a good cause.
It's a demand for Hindus.
It is demand of Hindus, but it's like it's not directly
Yeah,
impacting
but
us.
you want us to do what? Go straight to disenfranchising and enfranchising of Muslims or what?
That is not the.
All right. So I am saying that these are the Hindu agenda that we put in before the public. Ram Temple, Uniform Civil Code, Article 370. Article 370, by the way, mark my words, will before 2019 will go. All right, it will go. Ram Temple will be built next year. I'm telling you, I'll win the case in Supreme Court. Ban on cow slaughter, we have strengthened it. We have removed all subsidies to beef exports. So there are a lot of things we have done. But I don't know what may convince you.
What I wanted to say is the Right to Education Act, as you must know.
Yeah, I know.
There is a clause in that only Hindu
Run
institutions are impacted on that. So,
I know that.
So
But
how-
there are a lot of foolish things we have done with our application of mind. But that doesn't mean we can't fix it. We have, right now I'm fighting GST on the ground that this GSTN is anti-national. And I'll win. Similarly on the Prevention Corruption Act, we moved a bill to delete the clause by which I got the 2G spectrum scam validated. And so if that amendment which has been moved is passed in Parliament, then Augusta all will be let free, I'm telling you. Because the most important clause in the Prevention Corruption Act is section 13 bracket 1 bracket D part 3, which says that if I'm a minister and I enable somebody else to make a profit which is not in the public interest, then even though I have got no money, I am still guilty under prevention of corruption.
So that, Dr. Swamy, probably a couple of more questions, because I know you must be having a
dinner.
But we can't have enough of you. So, so the question that I wanted to ask brings to your favorite state, where I also come from, Tamil Nadu, where at least
not favorite state, my mother. This is my motherland.
Where the kind of at least one chief minister you brought down, and and probably every politician in Tamil Nadu, I mean, even in India too, but more so in Tamil Nadu, has a lot of fear about the kind of work that you have done. So now that, Jayalalitha, Selvi Jayalalitha passed away, how do you see the political situation unraveling there? Is that like anybody's, how is it? What's your, give us something which probably is not in the public.
I will tell you one scenario which is possible. But there are obstruction for my getting it implemented. And that is, from today, BJP decides we'll go alone, and it decides to set up candidates in every constituency in the state, that is 234 in the assembly and 39 in parliament. We will have no alliance with anybody before elections, and announce it now and start shortlisting candidates from today. The next parliament election is 2019, 2.5 years from now, and 2016 was the last assembly election. 221. So we've got plenty of time, and we have an organization, and the younger generation is national minded.
Absolutely.
I have met Tamilians after Tamilians that we made a big mistake in not being taught Hindi. We can't move around the way other state people are able to move around. So they want to be part of the India. I'm not saying that we should ignore our Tamil identity, but Tamil identity is subservient to the national identity. Tamil interest is subservient to national interest. If something clashes, if some Tamil interest, like supporting LTT, clashes with our national interest against terrorism, that will prevail, not their bloody LTT.
Swamiji, there has always been a very, I mean, maybe the fringe is probably noticed, but if you look at a median Tamilian, he is comfortable both with the Tamil exceptionalism as well as the mainstream national narrative. It's like, a very...
but he has to choose.
No, they're comfortable with both. And I mean, party like ADMK
No. Party of ADMK, after Miss Jayalalitha was threatened by the US Consul General's office, Consulate General's office, she went all totally on the side of Christians and Muslims, you see. She was only individually practicing Hindu. Otherwise, all her policies were anti-Hindu. The question today, and so many RSS people have been killed in Tamil Nadu, and nothing has been done about it. And the ISIS has reared his ugly head in Tamil Nadu. So I think the people are afraid, and therefore we have to tell them that you bond with us, and we will see, because we got power in the center. We can, like I did with Karunanidhi in 1991, I dismissed his government. They told me rivers of blood will flow, Tamil Nadu will become a separate state. All this my officers told us in the cabinet meeting. And Chandrasekhar said, will you take responsibility? I said, of course. I went there and sat there, and when we dismissed the DMK government, nothing happened. They told me buses will be burnt, not even a cycle was burnt. Then I had to hunt for where is Karunanidhi gone. I found that he has taken his 3 wives and hid in Oliver Road. You see? So, all this, when you decide to use the power of the center, these guys can't do anything, because they're all foreign inspired, either by LTT or by some jihadi organizations and so on. And we have to tell the people, give them the confidence, we'll stand with you. But take a national stand, learn Hindi, identify with with the national interests, take interest in all these issues. And they do. The young Tamils are telling me, why don't you come back to Tamil Nadu? I said, no, I can't come back unless I give...
I want to ask you, sorry, there are some wild speculations that you might be the next governor of Tamil Nadu.
I have turned down the governorship of Maharashtra. I have turned down the governorship of UP. Now I have turned down also. These are all informal soundings. I had also turned down the vice chancellorship of Jawaharlal University and the presidentship of the BRICS Bank in China. I told them it will never come, because the Chinese have told me that don't touch it. It is not going to come. And now it has been proved right. There is no BRICS Bank but the name. So I will tell you one thing. I am not going to take any of these ceremonial posts where all you do is sit and have breakfast, lunch.
No, but governor of Tamil Nadu will be an interesting assignment.
You give me BJP, hand it over to me and say run it like you like. I will transform BJP tomorrow. But the present one is all vested interests, you see.
Okay, I think we should conclude here, because, sir, it's been a really, really fascinating discussion, and I'm hoping to meet you more often on your economic ideas, especially. I think, sir, I really see that some of your ideas that you propounded 20 years back, getting a fresh lease of life.
It's a bigger now, I predicted in July that crude oil prices rise in December. It started happening.
Absolutely.
$10.
So wonderful talking to you, Swamiji, and have a great day.